My parents forced my brother to live in a dog cage. Today, I found out the horrifying reason why. My little brother Jake lives locked in the attic. Mom says if he ever got out, our family would be ruined. She says it all the time. I was too young to remember exactly when Jake was born, but something awful happened to my older brother, and that's why Jake stays in his cage. Today, though, I discovered the horrifying truth my parents have been hiding. I'm the only one allowed to feed Jake 3 times a day. Sometimes he's angry and rattles the bars. Other times he just cries softly. I think Jake likes me, though. Whenever my parents aren't home, I sneak into the attic and we play catch with a small stuffed bear. I always stay careful not to get too close. Mom would be furious if she found out. One day, as we were playing, Mom came home unexpectedly. Jake began to cry when I rushed to leave. Mom heard him and panicked. She said if neighbors heard, they'd find out about Jake. They'd misunderstand. They'd release him, and that would ruin us. Mom gets scared sometimes, especially when the shadows visit. When they come, we hold hands, light candles, and pray together. One night, after Mom and Dad had gone out, Jake cried loudly. I'd already fed him, but I went to check. He was pressing himself against the cage, tears streaming down his face. He looked so lonely. Slowly, I approached, carefully reaching my hand out. He reached back, holding my hand gently. He didn't seem dangerous, so I took the key and let him out. We laughed and played, chasing each other around until suddenly Mom screamed from the doorway. She forced Jake back inside his cage, locked it tight, and dragged me downstairs to pray. When Dad got home, he looked angrier than I'd ever seen. He said my older brother had been disobedient too. That's why Jake was such a monster. He told me I needed to be cleansed of sin, just like my brother, and prepared the ritual. On the 3rd night, my stomach hurt from thirst, but Dad wouldn't let me leave the altar, no matter how dizzy I felt. Jake cried loudly upstairs, missing me. Dad climbed up beside me, demanding I repent. Just as I whispered my promise to obey, strange noises filled the attic. Dad went pale. The shadows were back. Dad quickly pulled me from the altar, joining hands with Mom. Pray harder, he commanded. The room turned icy. Their breath fogged the air, and suddenly the door flew open. A heavy wind blew through, candles extinguished. Mom cried, saying she felt evil nearby. The shadows moved around us, breaking picture frames, knocking things over. When it finally stopped, Dad declared we needed to purge Jake completely. I begged him not to. Jake was good, and I loved him. Dad just yelled louder, saying we'd begin at sunrise. That night, I couldn't sleep. The shadows returned, gently guiding me to my parents' room. Carefully, I took the key hanging by Dad's bedpost, unlocked Jake's cage, and carried him downstairs. Jake whimpered loudly when I tripped, and my parents awoke instantly. They rushed down furious. Mom shouted about 2 sinful children destroying the family. I held Jake tight, preparing for punishment. Suddenly, the shadow appeared between us. It slowly transformed into someone familiar, my older brother. My parents screamed and fell to their knees as cracks formed along the walls. My brother turned and smiled gently at me. The door blew open again, and I fled outside with Jake in my arms. Behind us, my parents screamed, then everything went silent. I walked along the empty street until headlights illuminated us. A man and woman asked if we were okay, wrapped us in warm blankets, and gave us sandwiches and juice boxes. I hugged Jake tightly, promising he was safe now, as we drove away from the house forever.